Hey guys, in this series I intend to go over some of my favorite top tier jets and kind of go over how they perform, what they have for loadout options, etc., etc. Mostly revolving around sim. I'm going to go over topics including cockpit tours, if they have detailed cockpits, weapon loadouts, what you should do to defeat enemies and stuff like that, and general performance. So, to start the series out, I'm going to go with probably my favorite plane to fly in sim at this time, which is the F16A. Now, I really like the F16A, especially because of its amazing dogfight performance. It, in fact, beats the ADF quite handily in dogfights due to its exceptional low speed handling capabilities. It also has the ability for CAS, allowing you to bring it into ground realistic or ground sim and destroy enemy tanks, as well as planes. So, to start off, let's go into some of the loadout options. So, here we have some of the default loadouts, but if we go to the individual pylons, going from left to right, so for the leftmost wingtip station, you can see you have the option between 9Js and 9Ls. Second station, we have, again, 9Js, 9Ls. So basically your outer two pylons are air-to-air missiles. And this means that you can take a full cast loadout and still have 4 air-to-air missiles available to you, which is very nice. On the third pylon, you have the option to equip dumb rockets, AGM-65Bs, so these are the standard TV Mavericks. You can take either 1 or 6. I don't really see a particular need to carry 1. I just think it looks kind of funny. So generally you want to take the pylon of 3. You can also take GBU-8s, which are very big bombs, incendiary bombs, 500-pound bombs, 500-pound snake eye bombs. These are the high drag versions. So they're the ones that you can drop without a timer, and they will explode immediately and hit the ground and not kill you. You have 2,000-pound bombs, and you can also carry missiles. This goes for the same for the opposite side as well. The fourth pylon here, second to innermost, you can carry all the bombs you want, including GBU-8s. So this is pretty much bombs only pylon. If you take 12 500-pound bombs on these two stations right here and a full air-to-air load, you can actually destroy an entire base in ARB and still have all your missiles available to dogfight if you need, which is very handy, especially for grinding modules. This is actually how I managed to spade out my aircraft initially, is by bombing in ARB and then going and killing fighters afterwards. Centermost pylon, you can take a drop tank, which adds another about 8 minutes of fuel on standard power. And you can also take single bombs, so generally you want to just take the drop tank. So, on to some simulator goodness. So, to start out here, we're going to go over some of the cockpit stuff. So, you can see here in the center, you have the HUD. You have, can't necessarily see it right now because everything's kind of overlaying, but you can see it a bit better now. So, there's a center cross, that's just a segmented 4 lines. That is your gun cross, that is where your gun is pointing. You also have the circle with the 2 lines coming out the sides and the 1 line coming at the top. That hypothetically is a flight vector indicator, which shows where your aircraft is actually going as opposed to your nose, but it doesn't actually work. I don't think Gaijin is ever going to fix it, so don't count on it ever working. You also, on the left side of your HUD, so this section right here, this is your airspeed indicator in knots. You have a Mach indicator down here. You have your HUD tapes. This is your degrees, which you are pointing. You have your HUD mode as well. So, what the fuck? So you see CCIP for cannon on ground targets, CCIP for bombs, and standard just says ELCOS. So, on the right side of the HUD here, you have your radar elevation from the ground in feet. I think it is in hundreds of feet. I'm not entirely certain, honestly. I never really pay attention to it. And then through the center here, you can see these lines going about here. This shows how what angle your nose is pointing at, so whether or not you're going up or down. So moving on to the left side here, you have your RWR. Nothing special, just your standard US RWR. Has, you know, full 360-degree coverage with no little weird things where it takes up like an entire segment like you have with the Russian RWR, so it's very nice. Here you have a gear indicator, which actually works. But aside from that, you have this MFD in the center, which has two modes. So if you go to this MFD, you have the radar, and then the camera for Mavericks if you have them equipped. And you also have various gauges over here if you want to fly with your HUD completely off like this, which I sometimes do. Is not in this aircraft though, and I'll tell you why. So first thing is you have a climb indicator, you have a fuel flow indicator, which isn't exactly accurate. RPM percentage, which you don't really need to really know about. Nozzle position doesn't really matter either. You also have this non-functional fuel gauge here, which really makes me sad, because if this fuel gauge was functional, I 100% would fly this with my HUD completely turned off. In any case, let's get on to some flying. So, to start off here, the acceleration of the F-16 is very good. It takes off with relative haste, and that is very nice. It is a bit touchy on the rudder at takeoff, so if you overcorrect and stuff like that, you might find yourself careening off to either side of the runway, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue for most people. Generally, you want to start rotating around 170-ish, and then you can take off. Just make sure you don't delay your takeoff too much, otherwise you will snap your wheel gear, which is very annoying, like that Tunguska locking me. So, moving on to the radar a bit here, you have two radar modes. You have a standard pulse Doppler mode, and you have a standard search mode. You generally want to stick with the pulse Doppler. It's very good. It has very minimal notch angles and will allow you to easily detect targets. You can also see that the widest angle is 120 degrees by 8, and it is a 2-bar search. So you search in two 4-degree bars, which is very nice. And that Tunguska needs to shut up. God damn. I wish it didn't do that. But you also have range presets. You can go for 23 miles, which is default, 46 miles, which is the longest you're ever really going to realistically need. You can see out further. You can see out to 92, but you can't lock anything past 46. You also have shorter range, which is 12, and then back to the default. For ACM modes, you have a standard bore sight lock. This actually points slightly beneath the nose, which is something to keep in mind. You have a vertical scan, which is actually very good. It scans up quite a decent ways and is very good at acquiring things in a dogfight. And then you have a wide bore sight, which is simply just a bigger bore sight box. I generally don't use this too much, as it tends to lock up random stuff, especially if there's multiple objects and I'm trying to just get what's right in front of me. So, on to some simple weapons employment stuff here. So, I mentioned earlier that I really wanted that Tunguska to shut up, so let's make him. So the first thing you want to do with Mavericks in this plane is you want to have a button set to activate target point, or set target point. That way you can point your nose at a spot, press that button a couple times, because sometimes it doesn't go on the first one, and then you're good to go. You can see that's exactly what I mean by sometimes it doesn't go on the first time. Then you can just go over to the target here, lock them up, and shoot. That will hopefully get that rather annoying AA to shut up. The other option that you have is for bombs, for air to ground here. So you do not get any kind of CCIP or CCRP when it comes to the guided bombs. So that means like the GBU-8s. So you're going to have to drop those completely manually, which is somewhat annoying, but you know, it is what it is. On the other hand, for dumb bombs, you do get both CCIP and a very nice CCRP. And so here's how the CCIP works. Actually, that's CCRP right there. But you see you have this line right here, and at the very bottom of the line, you're going to have this little circle, and that circle shows where the bomb is going to drop. I probably just killed myself because I actually don't have a time delay on these bombs. Oh, no, we're fine. Okay. But that's basically how that works. And the CCRP is very nice. I'll show you how that works here. Just want to get a little bit of distance. Actually, I guess I can just bomb nothing. So, you can see if you go into Bombs Auto, what you have here is there are a couple interesting things. So, you have the box, which will display around the target you have selected. You have on the right side of your HUD, below the radar altitude indicator, you have a distance indicator in nautical miles. And then below that, you have a time until release, which is very nice. So, if I just give this bomb release permission, you can see it drops. You don't get any kind of fall line, so you actually have to use the indicator of the time, the seconds it'll take to hit in order to actually time when you need to drop your bombs. So you also have CCIP for your cannons on ground targets. However, the functionality of this is dubious, as you can see here. If I go to cannon on ground target and then point at the ground, nothing shows up. So, you know, you take some, you lose some. That just kind of is the way it is. The air-to-air missiles are pretty standard, AIM-9Ls. However, they are kind of nice in that you get a indicator as to where the missile head is looking, as you can see with that circle with the diamond inside of it. Once you have a target selected here, you can slave with radar. And you can also see that the circle, even without radar lock, will just follow the target around. It just indicates where your missile is pointing. Good for reducing potential friendly fire incidents. So, when you have a target locked, on the right side of your screen you can see the range to that target in miles and your closure rate. I'm not entirely sure what the units for the closure rate are, but if it's positive, it means you're gaining on them. If it's negative, it means that you are moving away from them, or that they are moving away from you. What is very handy, the other thing that this plane has, which is very nice, is it has a radar gun sight. So, normally you can see you just have the gimbal on the gun, which is kind of nice, but if you really want accurate shooting, you lock the target, you can see that it jumps there, and you can put the dot over the target, pull the trigger, and watch it burst into flames. Very nice EEGS, relatively accurate. Sometimes it under leads a little bit, so you can, if you just put the target a little bit out front, you'll generally hit center mass, and it's very nice. Now, when it comes to flight performance, especially when it comes to something like rate speed, I generally try and maintain around 400 to 420 knots of airspeed. You can do some simple conversions if you would like for other units. Converting to kilometers an hour is generally just doubling it, so that'd probably be around 840 kilometers an hour. Miles per hour is like multiplied by 1.1, so it's probably around like 500. But you can hold this rate relatively easily, and you can see that you're actually, you know, pulling around relatively fast. You will absolutely destroy any MiG-29 in a dogfight if you go for a rate fight. However, this thing's single turn performance, or one circle, is very good due to its ludicrously low stall speed. So, I've been flying in manual this entire time. This is how I would recommend flying this jet. It simply gives you more options in terms of the AOA you can pull, and the stall recovery of this plane is also very, very easy. But you can see here, even getting into really low speeds, I can still maneuver the plane relatively well. and I don't actually lose control until I hit around 70 knots of airspeed. Of course, you can't exactly climb infinitely, especially at 15,000 feet, but I actually still have positive control over the aircraft. I can nose back down. This thing is also almost impossible to spin out. If I try my absolute best here to get this into a flat spin, it simply just does not. So we're gonna head like straight up here. Again, the climb performance of this thing is absolutely ridiculous. And I'm still able to maintain nose-up aspect, though it's kind of drifting away from me now. Alright, we've completely stalled out. I'm going to do complete deflection on my rudder and everything like that. Even maxing out the control surfaces here, you can see recovery is just that simple. This plane is ridiculously good at low speed. Never be afraid to take someone into a one-circle fight with this thing, because if you play your cards right and place your lift vectors where they need to go, you will absolutely dominate anyone. So, I hope this video has been some help to you guys. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll try to get to that. I'll also try and actually produce this series in some kind of timely fashion, despite what my erratic, if non-existent, upload schedule might otherwise say. So, I will catch you guys in the next one.